Welcome back to Viewpoint. I'm Jim Zogby. The impact of social media, such as Facebook and Twitter, on the Arab Spring movement has been the subject of a whole lot of debate. For a first-hand analysis of the influence of social networking, I want to welcome my next guest. He's social media commentator Sultan Qassemi, fellow at the Dubai School of Government and a UAE-based columnist. He tweeted the Arab Spring uprising, providing live translations of communiques and hotspots from Egypt's Tahrir Square. Nearly 78,000 followers. He ranks number 25 on Time Magazine's 140 best tweeter feeds. They called you the Sultan of Tweet.
But that's the best introduction I've ever had, I have to say.
Listen, was it a Facebook revolution, or was it a revolution in which there was Facebook?
Let me just give you a background. In the year 2010, the number of Facebook users in the Arab world grew from 11.9 million to 22 million. That's about a 75% increase. So even though there was about 22 million or so Facebook users, there's still 300 million Arabs. So that's even less than 7 or 8%. What social media did, Jim, was it was an enabler. It allowed people to find each other, to reach out to each other, where congregating was not allowed in the Arab world due to martial laws and state of emergencies. Facebook allowed people to find the time, identify a place, to start a protest.
Is it a method of communication? Is it an organizing tool? It is both of those. But does it transform behavior in any way? Does it create new mechanics in social interaction as well?
Well, certainly, especially in societies where interaction between individuals isn't easy, either because of geographic, some of the Arab world countries are amongst the largest in the world. We're talking about Saudi Arabia, Algeria, for instance. They're massive. Egypt, massive countries, hundreds of miles between city and city. In some cases, because of Islamic tradition, it's not easy for men and women to mix. Social media broke down these barriers.
There are consequences to this. One of them is on traditional media. There are some who argue that social media replaces it. Others say, actually, no. What it does is it helps broadcast. It widens the broadcast of traditional media in a period of time when people aren't paying attention. Which is it?
Well, this is a natural progression. With radio, you had TV coming next. With print, you had the internet. People have to adapt. The truth is, social media reached a much younger audience, an audience that wasn't reading so much, and now is very much on top of things.
But there's a danger to it, right? I mean, in the sense that it's kind of an independent journalism, but it's a non-verifiable independent journalism. We had that situation in Syria of the lesbian woman opposition person who turned out to be a guy from Virginia, and some Twitter feeds I saw where I sort of questioned the veracity of them. Storylines that just didn't sort of ring true. How do you deal with that aspect of social media? And the fact is that if everybody's a journalist, then is anybody a journalist?
The truth is there are things that you can do to make sure that this person has credibility. For an example, the number of followers. For example, who follows that individual. If you know that trusted journalists are following her, then that individual is a trusted source. For instance, how old is the account? If the account is a few days old, it might not have as much credibility as an account that is months and maybe years old. So there are a few things that you can do to make sure.
If you want to get into the conversation right now, give us a call using very traditional means of communication, phone calls. Call us at 001-202-420-5665. If you're calling from the U.S., the number is 1-202-420-5730. Call us and talk to Sultan Qassemi about the role of social media. The growth has been astounding. I've looked at the numbers, and in Egypt, it went from about 1 million to 8 million in about a year in Facebook followers. You, on Twitter, 7,000 a year ago, 70-something thousand today. Have we just seen the beginning of this, or is there a point where it plateaus, or or is it going to be replaced by some new form?
Well, no one can tell what will happen in the future, but for sure there will be other social media tools. People are already talking about mobile phones that can do, that you can converse virtually with individuals. People can upload their own, they can make their own TV channels, for instance, on YouTube. So it's almost unlimited option-wise. But
one of the things that concerns me about this almost exponential growth of information is it's too much information. It's too much and it's undigested, and the result is that you end up going to places that you already agree with. It ends the diversity of information flows. Rather, you select out the Twitter feeds that reflect your position, or you go to the web pages that you agree with. I read Huffington Post. I don't read the Drudge Report. I read Twitter feeds from people I like. I don't read ones from those I'm going to politically disagree with. Does it end up feeding or hardening attitudes and not broadening minds?
No, I think that it ended the monopoly that certain news organizations had on the news, and I believe that a person, a responsible person, would be following someone who is sensible and someone who would reflect different point of views. The onus is on the user ultimately.
But if the user doesn't use it, then it ends up reinforcing bad attitudes. Or not bad attitudes, but it ends up reinforcing a particular point of view and not broadening a point of view.
Certainly, this is the similar case to old media. You can choose a newspaper that is right-wing or left-wing. You can choose a TV channel that caters to a specific point of view. You could do it across the board.
Talk about the demographics for a minute of the users. I look at the Twitter. Not Twitter, but Facebook publishes statistics about men and women, about age, to the best that they can. Is it something that's going to become broad, or right now it obviously concentrated on the younger end of society and the more educated end of society, the more affluent, because there's a cost factor in terms of having an implement that can do it? Are there limits in that regard? And the fact that government is monitoring, does that create an intrusion into this public sphere that ends up limiting people's use of the tool?
Very good questions. First of all, there's a huge number of women now using social media. They empower themselves. They're able to sell their products online, and avoid the government bureaucracy that is so notorious in the Middle East. Number two, obviously, it slants more towards the younger generation. There are about 30 million social media users. That's today about 10% of the Arab world. It still remains an elitist tool due to the fact that not all towns in the Arab world are connected to the internet, the fact that sometimes the costs are very prohibitive, the means to communicate, the language, the tools. So, and the other point that you brought up was also very important. Today we're seeing governments adapt to social media. We see the governments use it as a counter-revolutionary tool. In the first days of the Tunisian and Egyptian uprising, governments were not aware of the power of social media. What the Egyptians did was just turn it off completely. But then when it came back with force. However, for instance, with the Syrian uprising, with other uprisings in the Gulf, we've seen the government's point of view. For instance, even with Bahrain, we've seen the government's point of view. And so it's becoming, the debate is widening. However, we've seen even older generation take to social media.
Let me take a call from UK. Caller, your question.
Yeah, hi, Mr. Sultan, how are you? Our question about how can I protect my children for this media or Twitter or Facebook is going to be very, very dangerous for us. And that's it, all right?
Okay. That's a very good point. The truth is social media is a two-edged sword. You want your children to grow up knowing how to use it, but at the same time, for instance, say your kid uses this new option that allows you to tweet or to Facebook and tag your location. Now that's interesting. However, say your child is going to the mall or going down the street saying, I am in this location. Do you really want everyone in the world to know where your young daughter is or your young son is? Say your young child tweets, I'm going on a family holiday with mom and dad. We're leaving home for an entire month or a week or 2 weeks. then what that lets me know is the location of the house, the fact that this house is going to be empty for 2 weeks, so I have the opportunity. So you have the onus, Jim, is on the parents to learn about social media and to learn how it works, and then advise their children. You might also want to activate your own page on Facebook so that you would learn how it works. You might. I would advise against policing your child completely. Kids will be kids. They might, hurl, some kind of insults at each other. Give them freedom.
One of the things I find about Facebook is too much information, too much personal information. People end up. It's almost as if when they go online, inhibition is out the window, and the sense is that things that you won't even say in conversation in a large public gathering, because that's too private, it's information I don't want to share. When you go online, the caution's gone, and people share way too much information. That's a problem. It's an issue that I wonder. When I talked about transforming behavior, people end up doing things or saying things without a sense of the consequence of it when they go online.
Facebook, for instance, has this regulation that you have to be at least 13 years old. However, there are approximately 12 to 20 million users of Facebook who are under that age. This is about a year ago, so the numbers might have changed. The parent has to talk to their child. Do you really have to write your home address, your telephone number, the mother's name, the father's name, information that could be used by people who, who hold ill intentions against that individual? Once again, it could be used also to intimidate others. There's a very famous case here in America of a woman who wanted to punish her neighbor, and so she created a Facebook page and and attacked was it the daughter or the son of that neighbor, and that person attempted suicide. I think it was a very serious case.
Yeah. Back to the government intervention part, the government interference part, monitoring part. I know, because we do polling and market research, people have asked us to do what they call river sampling. And I learned very quickly how much information you can cull about who's on Facebook and what they're doing. Marketing obviously takes advantage of that for advertising purposes, but government is now using it as well to learn who's on Facebook, what they're saying, where they are, and what they're about. Does this create an inhibiting factor, and might it, in the end of the day, end up bouncing back against those who are fomenting change by exposing them, making them more vulnerable?
Certainly, social media was used as a tool for change, but in the beginning, in the first part of the Arab Spring. However, now it's being used by many governments in the region as a counter-revolutionary tool. We do know that a lot of people who are in jail today in the Middle East and the Arab world, cases have been built against them using their Facebook pages, using their blog, using their Twitter feeds. There's an individual in Kuwait who is currently detained. There are individuals across the Gulf. There are individuals in other parts of the Arab world. The cases against them were built using their own social media pages.
I don't know if you saw a piece in the New Yorker by Malcolm Gladwell. I want to sort of close out the conversation on this issue about the role of social media, questioning whether or not it plays the role, whether it's an essential component. He's arguing that it's not. That what's essential at the end of the day is face-to-face personal encounter. It's the network. In other words, your Facebook friends aren't really friends. They're Facebook friends, and there's a difference. Don't confuse the two. Organizing a revolution at the end of the day means having a political party, having an organization. People can lead and foment an uprising, but it's too sort of amorphous to create real change. You need organization, the physical organization that comes from either a party or or a concrete movement. Talk about that, evaluate that if you would.
Well, for Mr. Gladwell, that's easy to say because he lives in a country where organizing politically is allowed. However, if you come from countries where organizing politically is repressed, what options do you have? For instance, in, one of the sparks that led to the Arab Spring was the death of a gentleman called Khalid Saeed. And then he is an Egyptian IT engineer, I think, and he was brutally, beaten to a pulp by 2 Egyptian police officers. And even though he died, the cause of death was said to be swallowing some kind of drug, and the police officers were let go after 4 days in detention. Now, what happened was Wa'il Ghanem went and created a We Are All Khalid Saeed webpage on Facebook that led people to find each other and start protesting. How? By standing separately in order to bypass the very stringent Egyptian state of emergency law that doesn't allow more than 5 people to congregate together. And then they started saying that we have to march on January 25th, which was Police Day. Without social media, you would not have been able to tell your 10 or 15,000 followers that we will all dress in black and we will hold our Bibles and our Qurans and we will stand in silence. We will not communicate with each other so that we are not stopped by the police. Without social media, this would not have happened.
And so Malcolm Gladwell?
I think he has, he has the right to make such an argument, but I do not agree with him.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
And we'll follow your Twitter. Your Twitter tag is?
Sultan al-Qassemi.
And we'll put it up on the screen.
Thank you.
And I want you to know that I appreciated this conversation enormously, because I think that the role you've played in bringing articles of great import and videos of great import to the rest of us was significant. Did you expect when the Egyptian revolution started that this is what you're going to be doing?
No, none of us did. It was a small step for me.
And it was an amazing explosion in terms of the followers you have. I'm one of them. Thanks for joining us. That's all the time we've got right now. You can follow us at Twitter at AAI USA. I want to welcome you to the show tonight if you're a first-time viewer. If you're not and been with us for a while, thank you, and I'll see you next week on Viewpoint.